What's up, everybody? BDL44 coming at you with another video. All right, so I was trying to figure out what I want to talk about. And I was looking through the internet and different things, just trying to look for any type of topics where it has something to do with the Lakers, NBA, stuff, whatever. And I found something. Herb Jones. We have not talked about Herb Jones in regards to the Lakers' interest in this player at all. And that's just a dereliction of what my duties are, because the name has been really hot as of late. And I've been hearing whispers that the Lakers are very interested in this player all week long. And, my take on Herb Jones, he's a nice defender, but I got Vanderbilt fatigue, to be honest with you guys. I got Jared Vanderbilt fatigue. And when we talk about Herb Jones, my problem with Herb Jones is I can't trust him to stay healthy, and his stats don't match the price tag. Now, stats aren't everything, and I don't want to be a stat guy who just says, yo, if you don't make a certain amount of points happen or get a certain amount of blocks or rebounds, you're not good. I don't believe that. But the problem with the Laker bench, in my humble opinion, not only this year but the last 2 years, is that we've been too defensively oriented. And so as a result, we can't seem to get enough scoring off of our bench on a consistent basis because most of our bench players have defensive identities. And it hasn't translated to us being a very good defensive team, and we've needed the scoring more than we've needed the defense. So I'm kind of cool on Herb Jones, y'all. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm kind of cool. I think Herb Jones is a nice defensive player when healthy, but is rarely healthy. And I think that a lot of what people are interested in him doing, he may not be strong enough to do for us. See, we're going to need him to be on the floor all the time. He hasn't been on the floor all the time for the Pelicans. Over the years, he's missed 40 games? He's out right now with injury. It's just, and I have to put a caveat on that. I have to put an asterisk to say that a lot of bad teams will rest players more than maybe good teams would, because they're trying to tank, or they're trying to develop young guys, and that is the issue there in New Orleans. So that may be why he's missed so much time. But if you look back in the last couple of years, he's been on the floor less than he's actually been out there. And so my thing with Herb Jones is, I think his name is more hype than actual productivity. And I think when you couple what it is our problems are, he doesn't actually solve our problems. We need two-way guys. And Herb Jones is a pretty decent jump shooter, but he's not an offensive scorer like that. He's not a great two-way guy like that. He's not. He's more so known for blocking three-point shots, which is what people love him for. But, it's a Vanderbilt thing for me. It's like, okay, well, you're going to bring in a guy who's going to average 5 points a game, who's going to do nothing but play defense, and he's just going to continue to add to what is already a very, very deficient scoring bench. And I don't see what everybody's talking about. Now, if I thought that he could stay healthy for 72 to 80 games, something like that, then of course bring me Herb Jones. Let's make it happen. But if I'm expecting this guy to play 45, 50 games a season, and he's not a scoring guy like people want him to be, two-way-ish like people think he is, what am I actually asking for here? I'm a fantasy basketball nut. I have been for almost as long as I've been a fan of the NBA. Herb Jones has not had fantasy value a good portion of his career, because when he is out there, his stats are like Vanderbilt, and just like Vanderbilt, he's never out there for long. So even if you pick him up for a week, 2 weeks, he's going to be out within the week. He plays 4 games, he's going to miss 3 games for playing 4 games. It's like, that's the problem with that particular player. I don't trust his health, and he's not good enough of a two-way player, in my opinion, for what our deficiencies as a unit actually is. He's not what people say he is. This is one of the situations with the Lakers where Laker Nation, not the entity Laker Nation that does YouTube videos, no, but us, fan base, we tend to listen to people like Laker Nation YouTubers who will tell us a name, and we'll get fixated on that name, and we'll suddenly think we should be going after that name. We are infamous for this. I don't know if other teams' fan bases are like that, but ours is. You tell us Buddy Hield, now all of a sudden we must have Buddy Hield. You tell us Miles Turner, all of a sudden we must have Miles Turner. You tell us Andrew Wiggins, all of a sudden we must have Andrew Wiggins, and we're doing this with Herb Jones. I want people to look at what Herb Jones' productivity has been this season and tell me this is somebody you just have to have. Is he not? He is absolutely not. Now, does he fit a role based on his length and his ability to defend? Yes. Can he complement us? Yes. Is he going to be a liability on the offensive end? Not maybe as much as Vanderbilt. He's probably he's pretty good three-point shooter at times, but he's streaky from behind the arc. It's not like he's just some pure shooter that's defending the hell out of the ball too. No. He'll hit some threes. He'll miss some threes. I expect him to give me Vanderbilt production and Vanderbilt availability. So for me, if I can turn Vanderbilt into Herb Jones, then that's probably good. You know, that's probably good. But if I'm taking like Rui and a first round pick and expiring Gabe Vincent and Dalton Connect, and all I'm bringing back is Herb Jones, I don't think that's anywhere near a good trade. I think that's an awful trade, actually. I think that's a horrific trade. And I've heard people say, yeah, well, let's just give up 2 pick swaps, Dalton Connect, Gabe Vincent. I'm like, no, I'm not giving up any draft equity for a guy that I expect to be on the floor for only 45 to 50 games. I'm not doing that. Especially when he's going to have some deficiencies that further drive home more deficiencies to our roster. No, I'm not doing that. That don't make any sense to me. And so that's what I'm saying to you guys. The Herb Jones thing is more name and hype than what I expect his productivity is actually going to be when he gets there. That's a role player, y'all. It's a role player. So if you're going to give up good stuff for a role player, and just like any situation when you do that, you're going to find yourself ultimately without as much value on your roster as you ultimately need. I don't necessarily need Herb Jones unless I can get Herb Jones in exchange for basically the stuff that I don't want. The Pelicans, first of all, as an organization, do not have the leverage to demand anything. Let's just be real. They don't have the leverage to demand anything. Now, they're in a much better spot right now than they were in the past because they have young talent, rookies that people are excited about. So those rookies give them a bit more leverage as a franchise than maybe they used to having. But this is a misfit of a franchise. I don't have to pay price for any damn thing they got. So off rip, I'm not willing to throw in a first round pick. Off rip, I'm not willing to throw in any pick swaps. Just off the sheer nature of who they are. And so for me, in negotiating for Herb Jones, I tell you the truth. I'm doing salary matches and I'm giving you stuff that I don't care to keep. If you want the expiring contract of Gabe Vincent, you want Vanderbilt or Maxi Kleber, one of the two, not all three. I'm not giving you all of my expiring contracts for Herb Jones. If you want 2 of them, I'll give you 2 of them. That's it. Otherwise, if the numbers don't match, or if we can't do that, I'm not going after Herb, y'all. I'm not doing that. Me personally, I think Herb is a nice player, but a lot of what his name has been built on was stuff pre-injuries that he's ultimately accumulated over the last couple of years. I ain't seen nothing from Herb Jones that makes me think he's a game changer. He has been on a bad Pelicans team his entire career and has not helped them be anything other than the bad they've been. So why am I going after him like he's a savior for what it is I got going on? No, that's fake. That's not real. That's not real. His productivity does not garner that type of respect. No, he's a nice defensive wing who could probably hit a couple 3-point shots, maybe catch a lob or 2. But I'm not valuing him up there with players that are expected to be able to be two-way guys that can start for me every night, that are going to just push my team toward the championship. No, that's not who he is. It's not who he's been. And so that's what I feel about Herb Jones. No, man, no. At the price that the Pelicans are trying to have him at, no, I'm not doing that. And look, I could be all on board with moving Dalton Connect, But I'm not giving away a second-year shooter for free. I'm not throwing him in to get a role player, you guys. That was our 17th overall pick, right? And he may be a bust. He may look like a bust at this point, but it takes 4 years for guys to fully develop. He's only been in the league for 1.5 years. I may be seeing signs that I need to move on from him, and I may even be committed to moving on from him. But it's going to be at a price that is relevant to his age, height, length, and projected scoring ability. It's not going to be based on him struggling as a second-year pro. So I'm more likely to hold on to Dalton Knecht than most, because the same amount that I'm going to be able to get for him right now, if he doesn't get any better, I can get that same amount 3 years from now. You see what I'm saying? He's not going to lose value from where he's at. He's at dirt cheap, and he can only go up from here or stay laterally a negative asset from here. Now, my thinking is I may be willing to not re-sign him and let him walk because he's worth nothing. It doesn't matter if I let him walk or not. He's not worth anything. But if I'm going to try to trade him, then I'm going to assume that the field's going to be able to get more from him than what it is that I've been able to get out of him. As to which I may not ask them to pay that price, but somewhere in between where he's at and where they're going to take him is what I'm ultimately going to demand. And so for me, we held on to Gabe Vincent for 3 years. I don't see any harm in letting Dalton Knecht stay for another year or two. Worst case scenario, he just keeps being the same young player with all that bounce that he has right now that can't seem to find any confidence. Boo-hoo. He's not hurting me. I'm not playing him. He's not hurting me. And when I do put him out there, he's tall enough to rebound. He's long enough to stumble into some steals. And he's good enough shooter to stumble into some good corner shots. And if he ever finds his confidence, he's a 35-point scorer. So it's like, his athleticism and his length and height, comparable to what it is that's necessary for the league, makes it so that I can keep him and not hate having him on my team through his youngest development years. Best case scenario, he gets better, he snaps out of his slump, he gets comfortable, and suddenly I got a nice role-playing scorer off the bench at worst. At worst. And if he doesn't garner any value from here, then he's not worth anything. I can just let him walk, because he ain't going to be worth nothing. You see what I'm saying? There's no harm at all in holding on to him, but there's a great deal of harm in moving him to a team like, say, Charlotte. It suddenly turns into the player that you drafted. As to which you took back, what, a second-round pick's worth of value? That is not the best way to utilize that pick. With Jalen Hood-Schifino, I kind of felt the same way, but Jalen Hood-Schifino was a little different because of the back injuries. You know what I'm saying? And his struggles. Dalton don't have any of those injuries, just the struggles. He's a perfectly healthy, capable body. You see what I'm saying? That's where I draw the line. Now, if Dalton starts picking up knee injuries and then all that, then we're screwed. And that is the risk. But that's the risk with any talent, any level, is injuries, potential injuries coming to the body. And for a guy who hasn't had any injuries, I don't see why I should worry about that with him any more than I worry about that with anybody else. I just don't see the harm in holding out hope that he raises value from here or becomes a legitimate weapon for us. I do see the concern where he's not, or for those who say he's not helping us, we might as well move on from him. I definitely see what y'all see too. But I just value young players in a way that maybe is not what is consensus. You know what I mean? Not what everybody else thinks. The status quo. And I don't think it makes any sense for me to move on from a guy who's got young legs and hardly any mileage on him, but the ability at his peak to score 35, 40 points. I don't see any reason to move on from that piece. Nah, not when he's like 6'7", 6'8". Nah, I'm not. So that's something I wanted to say to you guys. I just see that people are ready to move on from Dalton, but they're ready to move on from him as if they don't value what he could potentially be in the market if they just hold a stance. You know what I mean? Hold a posturing that demands more from him than what he's ultimately showed. You can get more for him than what he showed based on the promise of what he could potentially be. So yeah, I'm not giving him away in a trade for something that I don't think is worth much or that I think can not do much for me. I'm not doing that. You know, I'm looking at something right now. Lakers. Yeah, my mind just skipped somewhere. I don't know why this thought popped into my head. But it's starting to become clear to me that the Philadelphia 76ers are not going to be able to move on from Joel Embiid's contract. They may need to buy him out in order to get rid of him. And depending on how things go, it may be in their best interest to not have him on the books. If he gets bought out, I think the Lakers should try to sign him to something reasonable to them. Because he's going to be on a dirt cheap contract. Nobody really has any faith in him staying healthy at all. But at his peak, he at the very least is an extremely elite rebounder and scorer. Even with a botched knee, only playing 20 games a season, he's still going to be the very best player off your bench. If he's going to get dwindled to that, he's going to be the best bench player in basketball. He will win the Sixth Man of the Year if he's forced to play that role. And he's so massive and so impossible to guard shooting the ball. At the very least, you can, at the absolute least, you can turn him into what Brook Lopez has been over the last several years. A three-point shooting center, stretching the floor completely for a guy like Luka and a guy like ultimately Austin Reeves. I don't know that this is anything the Lakers need to be considering right now, because I don't think Philadelphia is going to do this season. But as we look going forward, when I project what Joel Embiid is going to be forced to be, is either somebody who doesn't play basketball at all because of his injuries, or somebody who's going to have to take significantly less than what he ultimately would like to take, and ultimately becomes one of the most deadly role players the game has probably ever seen. Especially if he gets into a situation where he's a 6th or 7th option, 4th, 5th option. He becomes the most deadly player in basketball, arguably, based on bang for buck. Because what I'm noticing is that even with him being hobbled with terrible knees, he's still putting up 28 and 10, 27 and 10. How we doing? That's what I see. A player who can continue to put up numbers even without his knee working at all. And so if I'm telling y'all that his contract is so astronomical that it may be best for his franchise to move on from him, and that if he goes to the right spot, particularly one of our rivals, it can make them significantly better than they are right now, that's a player I take a chance on just because I don't want him to go there. I do not want him to go to Denver, play with Jokic. I do not want him to go play with Wemby. I do not want him to go to OKC. You see what I'm saying? So that's just something that's been running around. It's been just twirling around in my head. His contract is astronomical, and it's going to be astronomical for the next 3 years. Philadelphia has another one of those contracts in Paul George on their books right now. They do not need that either. The best thing for Philadelphia to do is to choose one of those contracts and stretch them and probably let the other one play itself out. And to me, it's a toss-up at this point. Which one is going to be the one they should stretch? It's a toss-up. Maybe when it all said and done, it's probably Paul George. Maybe you make an argument that they should probably stretch that one. But if they decide to stretch Joel, this becomes a situation where what it is I'm telling you becomes real. Absolutely and utterly real. So, give that some thought, LA. I'm always looking for ways to make us as good as we can possibly be. I do think that there's a probably better than not chance that this player is going to have to retire. So this may not be relevant at all. But there's a world where he gets stretched, and suddenly he's on the market, and there's going to be a market for him, even with his bum knee, only expected to play 30 games. A player with that type of ceiling is different for me than a guy who I would expect is a significantly lesser player playing 40, 50 games. You see what I'm saying? For those who are wondering why I would make the argument to pick up Joel Embiid on a much better contract than what he's on right now, because I'm not trading for that. But why would I be willing to bring in Joel Embiid, but then would have some pushback on Herb Jones? And the pushback on Herb Jones is based on me taking on what I think is a bad trade for him. This isn't us trading for Joel. This is us picking him up in free agency if for some reason he becomes available, like Dame Lillard, like DeAndre Ayton. You see what I'm saying? The way people are starting to murmur about the Lakers potentially being best for taking on Chris Paul is what essentially I'm saying in regards to Joel, if that were to become a reality. We are a long way from that being a reality, though. I don't think Philadelphia is thinking about that right now. But I just feel like Philadelphia, in my opinion, if this season goes south, they're going to likely move on for Daryl Morey. And in the event they move on from Daryl Morey, 9 out of 10 GMs are going to see the fruit in creating flexibility from which to create their own vision. You're definitely going to want to hold on to Edgecombe. You're definitely going to want to hold on to Maxey. Everything else depends on that person. And Maxey's on a massive contract, and they're going to need to pay him again, too. So how do you create flexibility as these two players continue to age on these big contracts, expected to barely be on the floor or produce for them? How do you create flexibility to move forward and rebuild your situation? Well, the answer is stretching one of those two contracts if you can't move them. And in this era, I don't believe they can move either one of those guys in trade. I think their contracts are so bad and the expectations for their availability and production is so low that they're practically untradeable, both of them. You know, to a lesser extent, I may feel the same way about Kawhi Leonard. But I have many reasons that don't have as much to do with basketball why I personally have no interest in Kawhi Leonard. But from a talent standpoint, small forward standpoint, raising my team's floor standpoint, that's another one of those guys that you have to respect in that regard. You got to respect to say, if you bring him to your situation, he's a 6th or 7th option, you become one of the most deadly teams in basketball. But I think a lot of what it is that has to do with Kawhi Leonard going forward is going to have to do with how the field views him as a person. I could totally see him being blackballed going forward. After this doesn't work out with the Clippers, I could totally see people not wanting him on any team anywhere in the league based on how he handles San Antonio, based on his availability with the Clippers and the questionable way that's handled, and of course this aspirations thing the Clippers been dealing with. I could totally see him being blackballed. I don't think too many people want him around. But he's so talented and so interchangeable to the team that does cross that picket line, so to speak, in regards to blackballing him. It's probably going to benefit greatly from letting him be on the team, especially if they need not rely upon him at all. If they need not rely upon him at all, if they got plenty of defense, if they got plenty of scorers, and you're just slotting him in, yeah, man, your team is super dangerous. Super dangerous. You put him on the Denver Nuggets right now, raise their ceiling dramatically, raise their floor dramatically. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So with everybody having to deal with this OKC monster, I think there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be thinking like this in regards to trying to raise their floor, so to speak, and raise their ceiling, so to speak. Because OKC is so damn dominant, and it potentially is going to continue to be so damn dominant, to where the market for that type of thing is probably going to be significantly greater than it was in the past. But I think the Lakers have a leg up on people because we got the Laker locale, because LeBron James is likely out of here after this season, as to which people would likely see an opportunity to have a bigger role on this team going forward, in theory. for which to rekindle their career. And of course, because we got Luka, and Luka is a guy who is pretty much a one-man army, if we're really understanding what we're looking at here. So you don't have to carry too much weight if you get here. So that's really what it is I see. Yeah, man. The Dallas Mavericks saved the Lakers' backside when they made that trade. Salute to Kobe Minute. They saved our backside something fierce, man. They gave us so much more compounded safety and cushion than we ever experienced prior to him arriving. Because I can make the argument that even when we had Kobe, may he rest in peace, we still had a certain aura about our roster, our team, that made it so that people would think twice about coming here. Do you see what I'm saying? That was what it was. People may or may not felt comfortable being on Kobe's team, may or may not felt like he was going to welcome them, may or may not felt he was going to get in the ball. It was a lot of energy around, I'm not sure I want to play on Kobe's team. I'm not sure I want to deal with the bright lights of being on Kobe's squad. His personality and mine may not necessarily mesh. He gonna outshadow me, overshadow me, that type of thing. And then LeBron, a lot of people had their energy pointed away from wanting to play with LeBron too. The aura around the situation was, I don't know. We're gonna have to deal with the passive aggressive stuff. We're gonna have to deal with the circus, as once alluded by Kevin Durant. Yeah, that's the environment I just don't want to be in. There's too much attention, too much of the media circuit. I don't want to deal with that. Whatever they think. I don't think Luka harbours any of those concerns in regards to the teams, the field around him. Players would love to play with this guy. He seems like he's easy to deal with. Superstars can shine next to him. Ask Jalen Brunson, ask Kyrie Irving, ask Austin Reeves. Like, these people's lives are easier with him. And it's understood that that is the case. So, I think going forward, he is more likely to be the superstar people want to play with than Kobe or LeBron. I'm just being honest. And if that remains the case, I think it's going to become even more likely that we're going to have even more people that want to force their way out of their team, come to Los Angeles, play for the Lakers. I think it's more likely over the next several years that we hear more rumors of people having us as a name on the list of teams they want to go to. And that's compounded even more so by the presence of Mark Walter as an owner and his endless pockets, as to which people think that he would be willing to go over the tax threshold, maybe go into the different spaces to not only pay people but to assure the highest quality of everything on the NBA can provide. So yeah, man, I think things are looking extremely bright for the Lakers right now. It's a perfect storm of good right now going on. And it's practically a miracle if you ask me. When you look at the content we were making last year just around this time, all the concerns we had about giving up measly picks because we were so concerned with what that meant for our future. With LeBron and AD aging on the team and all that, we were so concerned about what it looked like if we gave up picks and didn't bring back value. Now it's like, nah, that's not even the concern because of the presence of Luka. And then furthermore, because of the presence of Mark Walter, we just think that this is a much better free agency destination going forward. So yeah, man, I'm very thankful for where we're at. And honestly can't believe it. It's beyond my wildest dreams as it pertains to what my concerns were last year versus where we are right now. Beyond my wildest dreams. Even with LeBron James looking as he is, I don't find myself even the least bit concerned. And it's just because we cleaned up the place, so to speak. This place is significantly more attractive than it was just a year ago. I said all that to say that I think we're not too far away from number 18. The championship number 18 could be right around the corner. I know we got OKC to deal with, and that's fair. For those who say, no, we're not as close as you think because this team's going to dominate for the next 7 years, I can see it. I definitely see what you see there. But just in general, I think the OKC is going to kind of run into some issues in regards to the brackets as well. And if you're concerned about that sort of thing in OKC, maybe you have contingency plans to keep you from having it go wrong for you. But overall, it's in place to kind of deter super teams. When I say brackets, I mean aprons. It deters super teams and things like that. I misspoke. Aprons. That apron era is in place to kind of assure that a team like OKC can't continue to destroy the league, dominating like they're doing to start this season for the next 7-8 years. So if it works, then OKC is probably going to end up having to give away some stuff that they don't want to, or move on from some stuff that they can't afford to pay or whatever. So we'll see. We will see. I think the Lakers are in a firm position with this new ownership to feel like they can compete. Deeper pockets, because it costs a lot more to play the game these days. As an owner, what's the word? The phrase is you got to pay to play. That's what I'm trying to say. And we have the ability now with the type of money in place with new ownership to do that very thing. And with what it is they've proven in baseball with the Dodgers, you have to think that people are going to give them the benefit of the doubt to think that the impossible is possible with them in place. The reputation they harbor is extremely attractive to free agency in theory as well. And free agents will want to play for that man. That's what I think. So, yeah, man, it's a good time to be a Laker fan. Our team is good. Our future looks good. What can I say, man? We just got to take care of the small things. Make sure that we have a good farm system, as I often like to preach. Make sure our development system is straight. Young players continuing to make sure our scouting department is up to par. We fired our scouts. I don't feel all that comfortable about that. But I'm confident, just like I am in regards to other areas, that new ownership will take care of business and make sure we have the cream of the crop. Our coaching situation is pretty good. I like where JJ's at. I feel confident with him. Even though I do have some frustrations with how he utilizes the roster, ultimately I'm very confident in his ability to put together state-of-the-art play styles that can keep up with the modern NBA. And so I feel great about him. And yeah, man, we just move forward. We move forward. You know, Austin Reeves, is he untradeable at this point? The good kind of untradeable? When I look at what Austin's doing this season, and then I look at what Giannis is doing this season, if I'm being real with myself, Austin's having a comparable season to Giannis right now. It's not just a shoo-in that Austin is the worst player between the two of them this year. It's really not. Especially when you consider the availability of Giannis right now and his age. When you look at the ceiling of what Luka's doing, what Austin's doing. And he's had triple doubles and he's averaging 36 points, something like that. He's had a 51-point game already. We only played like 23 games this season. He's relatively durable. He stays healthy. You know, he's a guy that plays through anything and morphs into a role player when necessary so that Luka can look his best right next to him while he's still getting his numbers. I'm just saying, how many players can do that? Can Giannis do that? Can Giannis put up peak production while Luka's also putting up peak production? And if Luka's out, am I sure Giannis won't be out too? So it's like, the more I think about this, the less confident I feel about it. That's what I want to say. The more I think about it, the less confident I feel about it. Austin is simply just playing at too high of a level right now to add him into any trade rumors. And maybe overall, we need to start raising our floor a bit as in regards to what our expectations are for players in this level. Because in the past, what Austin's doing will win you a scoring title. And right now, there are guys who are scoring more than him on a night-to-night basis. So just in general, the league is just more efficient and more capable of scoring than what we were used to. But even as I assess that, you look at what he's doing on the boards, you look at what he's doing getting to the line, you look at what he's doing in the assist column, and you can't deny that by modern standards, Austin Reeves is playing like an all-star. By modern standards, he's comparable to guys who are playing at the MVP level. Some of the guys who are playing at the MVP level are doing astonishing things, but what he's been able to do is not something that you would say you would find normally in players that just happen to make an all-star team. Like he's playing at a level a bit higher than just regular all-star, you guys. He really is. And there's no ego there. The chemistry is great. And the negotiation variable is real because he did sign such a nice contract for the Lakers in the last negotiation process, to where you give him a leg up in regards to what you expect he's going to cost potentially versus somebody else who's putting up the same production. You're most likely to get a discount from Austin. And so, for me, I have to work all those variables into the equation and just say, hey, man, Giannis at 30-something, who's missed a lot of games, playoff games, in the past couple of years, though he's delivered on a championship and played some of the best ball I ever seen in the finals against the Suns, he's still Giannis. But I got to look at all the variables that come with Austin Reeves, including the ability to shift into whatever he needs to be to fit the roster, till I say, you know what, this might not be just a regular all-star. Austin may actually be a Hall of Famer. He may actually be a Hall of Famer. If he keeps this up, if he stays as durable as he's been, and he plays another 10 years at this level or better, for which he's been getting better every season, yeah, you're looking at a guy who's a Hall of Famer. You're not looking at a guy who's an all-star, make a team once or twice. This is a guy who's probably going to make 5, 6 all-star teams in his career. Now, Giannis makes about 13 of them, but Giannis is also 30 years old, as to where Austin, I think, is probably like 27. There's a 3-year difference, and it means a lot in basketball years. So what do you say to those of us who are saying, hey, man, I'm not sure over the next 4 years that I'm not going to be happier to have had Austin than I will to have had Giannis? Does that sound crazy? It may. But I'm starting to look at what I'm looking at here. I'm starting to look at what's there to see and the projections going forward. If Giannis continues to have the issues health-wise that he's been having, and he struggles at the most inopportune times like in the playoffs like he's been doing these last 2 years, yeah, I'm going to be happier to have had Austin. Especially if Austin's availability is as consistent as it's been. So, I don't know, man. I've been giving this a whole lot of thought because I've been on the trade Austin for Giannis train. But I'm starting to realize that there is a lot more to consider about what Austin is doing versus what Giannis could potentially be going forward, to where I'm a little worried that moving Austin for Giannis may be something I actually regret. Especially when you consider what I have to give up to get Giannis, including Austin. Basically my entire future, Rui Hachimura. I don't value Rui that like super high to where he's going to hold up the trade or anything, but that is a valuable asset to whatever degree. You know what I'm saying? He has some value in this league. He's a young player with comparable size to what you want from everyone. Plays the 4, the 3 a little bit, can score with the efficiency of an all-star. he really can. If you give him enough shots consistently enough, he can be a 25, 30-point scorer out there. Nobody's going to actually ask him to do that because of his deficiencies in other areas, but that's not the point. What he's good at, he's really, really good at. So if I'm throwing him into a trade on top of my entire future pick situation, on top of what looks like going to be a perennial all-star going forward, Austin Reeves, and I'm bringing back a 30-year-old that's going to miss playoff games, who's got, who's not been the most durable superstar in the league lately, who may potentially be a spacing deficiency piece. Giannis is not a shooter. He's not. Not the greatest free throw shooter. He's not. And then when you couple that with the fact that you now put yourself in the first apron situation. So you're locked into Luka and Giannis once you bring them here. You're in a situation where you can't get a whole lot better. You can't bring a whole lot to you. You're reliable upon potentially young players to play significant roles next to them. And if Luka is going to be out for whatever reason and Giannis is going to be out for whatever reason, now what you got on the floor looks significantly worse than what we have right now when Luka or Austin or LeBron is out. You're relying upon lower level role players to probably play heavier roles and carry heavier loads than what the role players we're asking to play are being forced to right now based on how our roster is constructed. Less flexibility going forward, significantly less. I just don't know. If Giannis is missing games, it's going to hurt us a lot more than if Luka, Austin, or LeBron misses games. Because of what it's going to take to get Giannis. It's just looking, to me, on its surface, if I could trade Austin for Giannis straight up and nothing else, then of course I'm going to make that trade. But that I have to throw in 3 picks and other stuff, and all I'm bringing back is Giannis, I suddenly don't feel as confident that that's the right decision for my organization. Even if Giannis is worth that package, it may not be the right shift for this franchise going forward. It may not be. Especially when we're still struggling with picks that have been mortgaged away. You know what I mean? We don't have all our picks going forward. We're still not out of the woods if for some reason Luka goes down with a, God forbid, some type of season-ending, career-ending injury. Suddenly we're in a massive hole. You know what I'm saying? So picks gives you help in those situations so that you can shift into tanking. And we don't have all our picks. We would be giving more of them away for another guy who could potentially have that same fate. It's just not really the greatest situation you want to find yourself in if their worst case scenario comes around. Suddenly it sucks significantly worse than your worst case scenario right now. When you talk about franchise health, these are the type of things that you have to assess just as equally as you would anything else. So, you weigh that against what revenue could come from having Giannis jerseys being sold all over the world. They're just a massive overall star power and ceiling raiser that Giannis potentially becomes if he's healthy. You're going to run through the regular season so long as you keep him and Luke on the floor together. They're not going to lose too many games at all. But how healthy do you think them dudes about to be going forward is the question. Especially if now you're taking the depth away from Luka and essentially making it so that Luka and Giannis are the only 2 players out there doing all the heavy lifting. I don't know if I like that. How many games has Luka missed already? I don't know. How many games has Giannis missed already? And if Giannis missed 3-4 weeks now, the only star I got out there is Luka, and he run around for dear life trying to carry the team, scoring 50 and 60 points a game just for us to win against the Hawks or something. No. I might be handicapping myself and making it more likely that I struggle if guys get injured. So yeah, man, I'm telling you guys, I'm changing my mind. Essentially, is what I'm trying to tell you in real time. I just think that it becomes a bit more risky than what I'm comfortable with. when you talk about assessing your risk threshold, I think this Giannis trade may be a bit more risky than what I'm comfortable with. That's all I'm saying. You know, the more I think about it, the more I assess it, the more I consider what his price tag's going to be potentially. If the price tag comes down, then of course you make the trade. But if the price tag stays where I think it's going to be, which is Austin, Rui, probably Adu, and like 3 picks or something like that, I'm kind of cool right now. As of this hour, I probably am not going to do that. And this is a tricky situation because Giannis's market should be like vast. This is Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's not too old. He's only 30 years old. People should want Giannis. But it's not just about what you're trading to get Giannis. It's about what you have strangleholding you as it pertains to this apron era and other aspects. But nothing more than how shackled you end up becoming for making that trade. If the NBA would just loosen up a bit in regards to this apron crap, people would feel so much better about making these type of trades because it wouldn't be as risky. But this becomes, you're tripling down on risk just because of the environment that we're in. So that's what I would try to explain to Giannis as he assesses what's coming out right now in regards to what people are willing to do to get him. Because he really does hold the value that is of the highest elite order. But the environment makes it so that people's risk threshold is significantly less, just in general. So whether you're Giannis or Luka, you're not going to go for the amount that you would otherwise think you're worth. People are not willing to make those type of moves right now like that. And so, you know, I heard a report today that said something along the lines of the Golden State Warriors were not willing to involve Draymond Green in a Giannis trade. That's crazy to me. But based on what it is I just said, it's probably along them same lines. Now, I don't value Draymond like that. And I don't think Golden State really is great at this. And I don't even know if I believe that report on top of that. But just assuming it's true, I see what they're thinking could potentially be there. It's probably the same thing I just described to you. And then I heard something along the lines of New York, the Knicks, essentially saying the only way they'll be willing to trade for Giannis is if Giannis forces his way there. So it's like Giannis is going to find out the market itself is not really open. It's not that people don't value him. It's that in this environment, it's extremely risky to move that much of anything at one time. You know? So that's my take on things. I see where Giannis is running into. I see what he's running into. I see what the Bucks are running into. And I don't know that either one of them is going to be very happy with what they're seeing in this market right now. I don't think either one of them are going to be very happy with the reports that are coming out. And if I were Giannis, I would pick a place and I would go to the Bucks and say, this is where I want to be. That's pretty much what you got to do. Pick a place and go there. You know what I mean? Because if you're waiting for the market to open up, or you're waiting for the right opportunity to where a team would be willing to move that much, it's not going to be the team he wants to go to. The team that's willing to do that is not the team he wants to go to. The team that's willing to do that is Sacramento, Pelicans, Dallas, the Clippers, like teams that are literally ready to move on from all of their garbage. They're definitely willing to move $50 million at once. You know what I mean? And the problem is with that is that the Bucks are still a team that has to take back stuff in Giannis' stead. So the teams that are likely willing to make that trade don't have good stuff to take back. They're going to give you James Harden. They're going to give you John Morant. They're going to give you Zion Williamson. That's about as good as you're going to get. That's not good. Like, that's not... You see what I'm saying? And that's why I think the Lakers have a potentially legitimate shot at getting him. Because when you look at Austin Reeves and you look at those misfits, suddenly it's like, yo, the best package is probably Austin and Rui and picks. If some of the big dogs don't get involved. Now, San Antonio, I think, is a realistic spot. I think San Antonio might have the package. And as I said, Golden State, although I couldn't make it work at the trade tracker, they definitely have a package for sure. But are those teams with such fantastically bright futures in need of a 30-year-old Giannis right now? I don't know that they actually need Giannis. When I talk about Wemby being 21 years old right now, if Giannis was like 26, 27, then of course you bring him and put him next to Wemby. Wemby's about 28. Giannis is barely like 30-something. It's fine, but like Wemby has shown me right now that he's still in his young body phase. He hasn't put on all of his man strength yet. He's only 21, and he's starting to have injury issues that's keeping him out for a lengthy time. It's going to be the same thing if you trade away all your youth, bring in 30-year-old Giannis. Now it's nothing but 30-year-old Giannis and Harrison Barnes. Like, you know what I mean? Waiting for Wemby to come back, as to which Giannis could go down. And then Wemby's running around with significantly less than what he has right now. Only for 4 years, 5 years from now, Giannis to either retire or leave in free agency or lose value. And then you're out of all your picks that ultimately are meant to be role players or runners with Wemby. It's probably in San Antonio's best interest to stand pat, instead of bringing themselves a 30-year-old center that significantly decreases their flexibility and future asset class, so that they can win an early championship in Wemby's tenure. That, when I project forward, I'd rather have what San Antonio has right now and just wait for all of it to ripen than to mortgage most of it to bring him prime Giannis. If you want to see what my concern is, see the trade that the Clippers made to get Paul George. At that point, Paul George looked at the way Giannis is looked at. Well, not really, but close enough to where he was such a prime superstar at the time. Still got some time left. He's going to play great. We can go after a championship right now. It's the same. That's the same line of thinking. And with Giannis having the issues that he's having again, injury-wise, right now, I don't feel good about what he's going to look like 4 years from now if asked to do too much between now and then. So you consider all of this. If you're a team like San Antonio or OKC, and you're talking about mortgaging significant amount of picks and young, talented players to acquire him so that you can slap him next to your other superstar and then ask them both to carry you to domination. Are you going to be good enough to beat OKC? Even if you do this? And if the answer is no, then what are you doing it for? This is what I think is there to see in regards to Giannis. I don't know that the team that he wants to go to is going to, or the team that you would think would be willing to move stuff for him that the Bucks would ultimately like, are going to actually pull the trigger on something like that. San Antonio, OKC are the teams that the Bucks would probably want to do the deal with. If I'm those two teams, I'm kind of cool. I'm personally, as I'm assessing their situations, not certain that that's the right move for me, just like I'm doing with the Lakers. I'm not sure if I'm San Antonio, I do that. I'm not sure if I'm OKC, I do that. And so this becomes a situation where he could end up going to a lateral situation. You're leaving a Bucks team that ain't all that great with not a whole lot of flexibility. You could potentially find yourself in a different situation that has just as little flexibility after making the trade for you. If you know what you're doing, that's not something to want. So yeah, that's what I'm looking at here, man. As I assess all of this, that's why I'm legitimately considering Giannis for the Lakers, because as I look at the landscape, the perfect storm based on what it is that I believe is likely the Bucks saying, we can get Austin Reeves. We can get Austin Reeves and the Laker picks. We could get Austin Reeves, Laker picks, and Rui Hachimura expiring at $18 million. Like, that looks like one of the best packages, and one of the more likely teams that would be willing to do something like that is us, in my opinion. Having nothing to do with what I've read or any rumors, or again, the Toronto Raptors. They're the team that I've already thrown in once. They look like a sweet medium to where they, as an organization, have gambled and been successful with the Kawhi thing, and they have pieces that I think would be attractive to a team like the Bucks, and picks potentially to trade along with those pieces that should make it so that the Bucks would be happy about making a deal with them. They got it, and they're a team that's won a championship most recently, to where Giannis will be like, okay, this is a championship organization. I like this market. I can see it working for all parties. That's why I keep throwing Toronto in, because they look likely to me to be a team that all parties involved would be comfortable making a move. So that's what I'm looking at, man. And maybe there's some more. Maybe there's some other teams I'm not thinking about. I've done some thinking about this. Miami, that's another team that might, like I said, Miami with Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo, or Tyler Hero and Khalil Ware and Jaime Hawkes, Casper Shakushonis, Davion Mitchell. Like, if they throw enough of that stuff together coupled with picks, I'm sure Milwaukee will feel good about that package too. And I know we've already had this conversation, but like, that's the type of team that I think Orlando, potentially, if Orlando would be willing to move Franz Wagner and Anthony Black and picks, maybe that might feel okay to the Bucks as a package. That's the type of stuff that I think will be available to Milwaukee. So I think the Rockets are also a team, if they're willing to throw in Amen Thompson. I would not be comfortable moving on from Amen Thompson or Alperen Sengun for any package in this league right now. I personally wouldn't do it. I'm holding on to them two for dear life. You can have anything else, including Kevin Durant, but not those two. But I think the Rockets have a different way of looking at it, and they may be willing to throw in Amen Thompson. They may. I think they could be willing. So I would say the Rockets are a likely place for him to go. I don't like the Rockets for him at all. I don't. But they're a contender. They could be interested. They're aggressive. Good coaching. So throw the Rockets in there for certain. So that's really what it is, man. He's likely going to end up in California, Texas, or Florida to some capacity, or Canada. Those are my predictions. And that's really what I have to say about that. So I appreciate everybody for allowing me to bump my gums for an hour. My name is BDF44. I thank y'all for watching.